This is the No BS Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Shanks. In this show, we look behind the curtain of financial services to find answers to the biggest questions no one is asking. Join me as I welcome industry influencers, outside business leaders, and inspirational game changers for real, no BS conversations that will challenge you to think big. I want to motivate you to find purpose and fulfillment in your career. Now on to the show.
Welcome to the No BS Podcast, and we mean no BS. This is the first episode with your host, Ryan Shanks. I'm Patrice Sikora, and I really enjoy these inaugural podcasts because here we will learn about Ryan from Ryan, which often makes for a very engaging show. Ryan, let's start out with how you got in the business in the first place. I understand it's a little different.
It is a little different. I was recruiting in the technology sector. And so my focus was the US, Asia Pacific, and the UK. And 9/11 happened. When that happened, pretty much technology companies across the board, they froze on hiring in terms of paying some sort of a third-party recruiter. So I thought, well, gosh, I'm in this business to make an income. So I started poking around to look to see what other alternative industries there were. I came across this industry. And as I started making cold calls to learn about the industry, I recognized that the firms were saying, Ryan, if you find me this type of advisor that's been in the business a certain amount of time, clients that are loyal, I will hire those types of advisors every day, all day.
Oh, wow.
So in the recruiting world, you most of your deals are always contingent, but you typically have like one job order. You fill that job order and the hope is you get a second. I quickly identified that this is an industry that is aggressively competing for those types of advisors, but when they find them, they'll hire them all day, every day.
So what do you look for in an advisor?
I look for someone who truly cares about the difference they can make in the client's life. I look for someone who is in this business to add value. I look for someone who is in this business without conflict. And I look for folks in this business that really want upward mobility. I've outgrown where I'm at. I want to provide more to my clients, and I'm not doing it here.
How do you find them?
Well, that's the trick. When I started my consulting firm years ago, it was really around referrals. So I just reached out and got to know a lot of people in the industry that all worked with financial advisors. And I said, I want to introduce to you who I am, what I plan to do, and how I plan to help advisors. And I want to understand how you help them. And perhaps over time, we build trust and we cross-refer to one another. And so that's really how I started to go about doing that. The old-fashioned way that it's done is you go and you pull out the data and you cold call them.
And what do you do for your clients? Once you've identified somebody, what do you do then?
Once we've identified someone, we're very consultative in figuring out what's missing. Are you wanting to grow? Is that growth tied to new clients organically? Is that growth tied to attracting other advisors and their clients to come and be a part of what you're doing? Are you older in the business and you're wanting to try to find a proper successor, but you love the business so much, you don't want to walk away? So there's so many different evolutions. So we like to kind of view the landscape, I do anyways, that there's sort of the next gen coming into the business. There's the aging population getting out of the business. And in the middle, you've got all kinds of different movement. One of the most prevalent is the breakaway movement.
Tell me about that.
That's where a financial advisor is with a bank or a wirehouse or a regional brokerage firm. They're an employee and they're super intrigued with independence. So they want to break away to independence. And that's where we work with them to help them understand the risk involved in breaking away. We help them de-risk that strategy and we help them understand and own whether they need to build it or whether they need to join it.
Tell me about the educational process. I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of advisors have ideas and maybe dreams, but they have no clue how to reach them, how to get there.
Yeah, I mean, look, most financial advisors got into this business not to be a business owner, but to work with clients and help them understand where their money should go. Over time, in a lot of instances, they've just backed themselves into a corner, and it may be that they're with a company that is telling them what they should sell their clients, telling them where they should put their clients' investments. But they reach a conclusion that I want something better, my clients deserve better, and it's on me to do something about it.
How do you show them their possibilities?
Part of that's being in the business for 22 years.
Okay.
Right. Part of that is just truthfully being in the business, I've been in thousands of offices around the country. I have worked with firms and advisors of all different sizes and shapes. As you do it for that length of time, you gain knowledge and you start to recognize certain compatibilities for an advisor that's in this circumstance and what would make sense for them. I tell our team, and we talk about it internally, that we're not in the order taking business. We're in the advice, guidance, and coaching business to ensure that, they're not coming to us to say, hey, I want this, go get it for me. Some of the advisors do, but we're more of let's slow this down and let's make sure that you understand the options available and what's best for you and your clients.
You mentioned your team. Who's on it?
Yeah, so we've got a great team. We've got 10 folks spread across the United States. We've got one team member that's in the UK. Eric, my co-founder in Austin, Texas. I'm wearing my Texas shirt today. He's a very dear friend. We were friends first. He's someone that I trusted with sort of a vision I had to try to digitize and standardize the way recruiting has been done. And I'm grateful that he's wanted to kind of go on this journey with me. And then we've got an incredible team spread across the country that are out there really all rowing in the same direction, trying to leave the business better than we found it.
Do you and your partner have a business philosophy, or do you have one that really resonates with you?
That's a great question. I would say that from a personal philosophy perspective, I function from a place of no regrets. No matter if it's a mistake that I make, I never look at it as, oh, I wish I could go back in time and not make that mistake. I view it as I'm grateful for the mistake for what it's taught me. I apply some of those elements into the business. And frankly, that's part of the core DNA and what we're trying to help empower financial advisors with. Is there's a lot of mistakes that are made when you look to make a move, and depending on who's giving the guidance, what's the motivator for that guidance? So we like to think of being very sort of unbiased there. Eric and I, we talk all the time that we're very focused on sort of fail fast, fail cheap. We want to be smart about what it is that we're doing here. We never want to deviate from the core DNA and the purpose for why we're here.
You mentioned no regrets. I love the sentiment. Do you find some of the advisors or any of the advisors you approach or deal with have regrets?
All the time. All the time. They have regrets because they didn't know what questions they should have asked. They have regrets because they hung on to one element that they just put all the weight in, and they weren't comprehensive in all the other elements that matter. Keep in mind, my lens in terms of how we interface with advisors is around where they are and where they want to go. And we're just that compass to get them there. We don't see those regrets when they engage with us because of our process, because of the entire transparency around it. But we often come in to try to rescue those scenarios where they maybe followed someone else's guidance, or they just didn't know what they didn't know. And that's not really their fault. They're in the business to give clients investment advice. They're not in the business to evaluate firms and do proper due diligence on who's the best fit.
We've talked about working. What do you do when you're not working? What do you do for fun?
So I have 3 very active kids. I try to stay as involved in their lives as I can, coaching to the degree that they'll let me. My oldest is in high school, so fortunately it's all high school sports, and he gets the benefit of not having me involved there. But I coach my daughter's lacrosse team. She's 10. I play platform tennis, which out here in New England is a sport we play primarily in the winters, but I play in the summer as well. Mm-hmm. I also play tennis and I play golf.
Not bad. Not bad at all. You like being outside?
I like being outside. I don't do it as often as I'd like, but I do enjoy it.
Do you have a hero, Ryan?
It's interesting. I sort of view heroes in a couple of different ways. I think that on one hand, I look to my grandparents on my father's side, and they were married for 65 years and they had 5 kids, and marriage is tough. It's not all roses. It was kind of at a time where you stayed the course, no matter the good, the bad, et cetera. But I think that if I were to sort of look very broadly, this is very bold, but I would say Socrates would be one for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because of the independence in terms of the thinking and the challenging of sort of preconceptions, but also the integrity. Like I said, I grew up in a really small town, and your word meant something. You shook somebody's hand and looked them in the eyes. That was everything. It wasn't until I started getting involved in corporate America and business transactions that you realize that things need to be documented, because not everyone came from that place. That's what I would hang my hat on.
Do you find that advisors appreciate that approach?
I think if an advisor takes the time to understand that, 100%.
Okay.
But it's such a fast moving marketplace that oftentimes they're so consumed with the issues they're having where they are and they just want a way out that they don't slow down some of that noise to do it properly.
That's rather sobering, really. What's your idea of success? Another sobering thought.
Yeah, that's a very sobering thought. My idea of success is changing one person's life and them turning around and communicating that experience to everyone they come across from that point forward.
Wow.
When we help a financial advisor go through this process, our goal is to leave an impression on them that they will go and they will communicate that value to every advisor they've ever known. And we don't take it lightly. We take it very seriously that there's a responsibility there, but we view it as we're the fiduciary for them just as they're the fiduciary for their clients.
All right. All right. Is there one thing about you that most people don't know?
Yeah, so I've been talking to my kids about this recently. I was talking to my wife and I said, the kids are excited that I've got my own company and we've had investors come in and invest in it. And so they kind of have this misconception that, well, I can kind of follow dad's footsteps and it's just all like, it's all great. And so I've been telling my two boys this week, actually, let me tell you the times where I was fired from a job. And they both looked at me and said, what, you've been fired from a job? And I said, absolutely. I said, I tried to go to college. I didn't graduate. I was capable of going and getting any job I ever wanted. And when I showed up to the job, I outworked everyone else that was there, but I was misbehaved and I had other things I wanted to do socially. And I just was not very responsible. And so I kind of reached a conclusion the hard way. When you're talking about going out and starting a business from scratch, you take all that with you, right? You have nothing really to fall back on. I'm trying to sort of pass that forward to them that, again, sort of the no regrets thing. Here are some of the experiences in my life. Here's some of the responsibilities I've been given. So I shared with my 10-year-old the other day that at 13, I was responsible for running a pro shop and taking care of all kinds of elements, including managing the money and the register and transactions. And I was a 13-year-old kid. My oldest is 15. Those are some things that I'm really trying to sort of spend some time on with them to help them understand. I think that's something that most people don't know. They kind of all think that, oh, I see you on social media. I see you at a conference. Well, it's all just roses for you. So I think that's something that most people don't know.
Thinking of everything you've been through and having a successful business and working hard, if you had all the money in the world, what would you do?
First thing I'd do is I'd buy a boat, because every single time my kids ask for something, my response is, I want a boat. So I feel like I need to kind of put a dot on that. Like, hey guys, see,
I got a boat.
So I think I'd want to go and do that. Yeah. I'm like, you guys want this? I want a boat. And my 12-year-old's like, Dad, one day I'm going to buy you a boat. I'm like, that's fantastic.
What kind of boat?
I'd get one that could sleep the family so that we could go out and we could have some fun in it on the ocean and fish. I do quite a bit of fishing with my kids and they enjoy it. So that's probably one of the things we would do. But in all seriousness, if I had like an unlimited supply of money, I'm a big proponent of just sort of thinking out of the box in lots of different ways and solving for issues in a lot of different ways. So I think I'd probably want to create some type of a foundation where I could teach my kids something more meaningful than just the potential income you can make in your life. And it's something that we do now with all three kids. Their allowance, it gets allocated into 3 buckets, one for spending, one for saving, and one for giving. So you try to establish it early when you can, but I would want to lead by example there. But it'd be a boat, probably a beach house, probably a couple of other toys along the way.
Do you want your kids to follow in your footsteps?
That's part of some of the conversations we're having because they're realizing, wow, look, Dad, look what you're doing. And you didn't graduate from college.
Wow.
And so it's a really interesting conversation to have with your kids. And I'm like, I never found a door that I couldn't knock on and get someone to open and let me in. Meaning if I ever wanted a job, I was able to get the job. But if you're willing to go to college, I believe that you're given a set of keys that allow for you to not necessarily have to knock on the doors like I had to. So I'm trying to challenge them. I'd be proud if they did. I am talking to my oldest. He's 15. My 12-year-old, he's already invested in Bitcoin. And so they're kind of enterprising in terms of my 12-year-old can go out and make $150 in a day selling lemonade. So these kids are
talented.
They're hustling.
Yeah,
they are, but you don't want to blow that idea up for them. But there's occasions where, my wife and I talk about like, what if they didn't want to go to college? And so I tell them, I'll challenge them. If you have an idea, put a business plan together, come to dad, sit down with me and explain to me what the idea is. Explain to me how that idea is greater than anyone else. Explain to me how you're going to implement that. I guess I can't help it, but I'm having that impression on my kids in terms of they're wanting to go and do something different. So we'll see. You know, we're sooner to that point with my oldest.
15, yeah, you're getting there. Yeah. Do you have a mantra or a saying that keeps you focused, or even just an idea, a picture that keeps you focused?
I will tell you, one of the things that keeps me focused is actually something that my co-founder, Eric, has really been very firm on with me. I have a tendency that if I'm going to go do something, it's got to be done a certain way and perfect. And so it can all of a sudden kind of have its way of having an impact into the product we're building and the technology. And so he's really smart about it. And he said, Ryan, listen, if we're on a mission to build something perfect, let's both go our separate ways, remain friends, but we will not be successful here because it will never be perfect. But if we can make it better and we can make progress, then that's something. So that is, I mean, over the last 2.5 years, that has been one of the most singular items that I've sort of kind of grabbed a hold of. And it's kind of freed me from not needing to be perfect. Sometimes being in a mess is actually perfect in itself.
Well, you certainly learn from a mess, that's for sure.
You do.
Yeah. What's your proudest achievement?
My 3 kids.
I knew you were going to say that the way you were talking about them.
Yep, my 3 kids. Like I'll tell you something. They certainly come home to roost. You know, the saying of, "Oh, you'll get yours." It is coming back in spades for me. But I wouldn't change anything, and it's the greatest honor. I tell people, I talk to startup founders all the time about sort of the balance in your life, and I'm like, it's not a complicated equation. If I were to have no money, to lose my home, have no cars, no nothing, but I have my family, I still won the lottery. And I think if you can wake up every day with that kind of mindset, you're not so attached to the things that frankly don't matter, right? You don't take them with you when you die.
Are you happy in what you're doing?
I love what I'm doing. I'm happier in the wealth management industry in 22 years. I'm more happy now than ever because I see the impact we're having on their lives. I see the ability with technology to scale that to have a greater impact on more lives. And that's really what gets me excited. Like, I don't want to go and just do something and do a deal or do a couple of deals. I want to go and I want to transform an industry and have it be done in a better way forever.
How can people reach you, Ryan?
They can reach me at ryan@famatch.com. They can reach us at www.famatch.com is our website. They can call our office at 413-754-3254.
Ryan Shanks, this has been a really thoughtful, almost Socratic podcast, and I really do appreciate it. I mean that very, very much. I look forward to sharing many more informative and educational episodes with you. Now, listeners, follow or subscribe to the No BS podcast with Ryan Shanks to make sure you know when the latest show is available, and you can really impress your friends and colleagues if you share with them. I'm Patrice Sikora, and let's talk again later. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of FA Match. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only.